Hello everybody, I'm David Marino and welcome to the Marino Show. The person I'm interviewing today will probably look a little familiar. Marina DeYoe-Pedraza is actually the dancer in my intro to my show. She's awesome. Today we're talking to her about her being a singer, an actress, a dancer, as you can see, a puppeteer. She has a lot of different projects going on and we're going to talk all about them here during my interview here in a second. The Marino Show. This is Marina DeYoe-Pedraza. She is in the intro of the Marino Show, and that was so much fun. Yeah. So Marina is, I had to write everything down because you do so many things, which is awesome. You're an actress, puppeteer, dancer, singer. Yeah. All of that. I'm jealous that you have all of those talents. But I will say right now we're in a dance space where you typically rehearse. So you do your dancing with Ballet East. You also are associated with the Salvage Vanguard Theater. And then you have your own show that's called Our Lady of the Sacred Part, Vulva Pope, which we are going to dig into later. But I want to start with your dancing, Ballet East. So you started dancing at a very early age, right? Can you talk to me about how you evolved into the dancer that you are today?
Yes. Okay, well, I started dancing when I was 2, which is actually really early. Most kids start when they're 4. I had issues with like balance and whatever, and so they threw me into dance and like it was magic. So I've been dancing since I was 2. It started in Corpus Christi, and then when my family moved to the Rio Grande Valley, I danced with a dance studio that used to be there. They had a dance company and everything called the South Texas Performing Arts Center. And so that's where the bulk of like my ballet training, and we did everything: tap, jazz, folklorico, flamenco, any kind of dance you could think of, they were training us in it. And so I did that up until I was 16. And then I left that studio. I got fatigued from it. There was like, unfortunately, like in dance culture, there is sometimes that like drama and that cattiness that happens, and then you get choreographers that pit you against other dancers.
Very competitive.
That was happening, and so I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. So then I started dancing ballroom at my high school, and I did like tango and rumba and swing, and then I was on the folklorico dance team there too. And then I took kind of a hiatus from it, and that's when I got into the theater part of my passion. So I'm a performer, definitely. I'm like, any kind of anything where I'm on stage, I want to do it, and I want to be good at it. So that's when that happened, was in high school. And then I found dance again in college, and I took some classes while I was studying in Long Island, New York. And then when I moved back to Austin, that's when I started pursuing it more seriously. I was taking an acting class, oddly enough, and the acting teacher asked me, and she was like, "Are you a dancer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I used to do it. I don't really do it anymore." And she's like, "You should do it again." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I Googled, I was broke, and I Googled like free dance classes as like a really like shot in the dark hope. And actually Ballet East came up. And so what Rodolfo Mendez, who founded the company in 1978, he has always offered, he passed away in 2019, but he always offered free dance classes to people who lived on the east side of Austin.
That's, I mean, especially for this side of Austin. I mean, a lot has changed over the years, but yeah, this is typically a side where, you know, people don't always have the money to, especially in the arts. When you want to go into the arts, it can be expensive. And so that's an outlet for many young people and adults.
And so that was a blessing that I happened to stumble upon. Maybe it was fate, I don't know. But I started dancing with them, and I was like taken aback because all these people were really, really good, and I was real out of shape. And I was like, maybe one day I'll be able to dance like that. And then Melissa Villarreal, who at the time was the associate artistic director, she just like could tell that I wanted it, and she just kept like investing in me and planting seeds and helping me get back in shape and unlearn these bad habits that I had when I used to dance when I was like younger. And so she's really the reason why I like stuck with it. And then Rodolfo like essentially provided this space for all of these like artists like myself to train for free and then perform in exchange. And so that's how I came to be a company member of Ballet East. And now I even teach class occasionally when, you know, something's going on in Melissa's schedule or JP's schedule. And like the leadership has changed hands now. So it's really awesome that it's like lived this long. It's almost like 40 years. But yeah, so it started with Rodolfo and then it went to Melissa. And now Juan Pablo Flores, JP Flores, is taking over this year. So this is his first season as the like artistic director. So it's wild. But I find that I started off with like lots of ballet and lots of like musical theater and jazz. And now I'm like, keep those pointe shoes away from me. I want to dance barefoot. I want to like undulate my spine. I'm not so like upright anymore. So the style of my movement has become a lot more organic and less like I'm holding my technique and things like that, which has definitely like come out of dancing with the modern dance company, dancing with Melissa. Yeah, so that's kind of how the dancer artist has evolved.
And what has it meant to you to have that as, I mean, what has it provided for you in your life, dance? Because you've done it since such an early age, I would imagine, aside from the point where, you know, it got difficult, but you seem to keep going back to it.
Yeah, I think it's my first love, really. Like, I love all of the art forms, but it definitely is the one I keep coming back to because it's the one that I found first. And I feel like, you know how you have like a first language?
Yeah.
That's how it feels to me, is like, oh, this is the vocab that I know. Yeah, I don't know. It's like an addiction. I don't know how to describe it. I think, okay, what it is like, it's one thing to take something that's challenging like a puzzle, right? And intellectually it's difficult and you have to solve it, but it doesn't involve your like full capacity, right? It's just like one part of your body. Whereas with dance, like I feel like it involves my brain because I have to learn the choreography, my whole like body because I have to be strong enough to execute the choreography. And so it's this really like whole body thing that I'm like, it's a challenge. And so when you can't do something, you can really tell when you can't do it. You can't fake it. Like if you're on one leg, you're gonna fall. So with dance, it's like you start to see the growth and you start to see the results of like your discipline and your work ethic manifest in such a visual way, in a physical way. Whereas like with like other things, maybe it's a little more nuanced, if that makes sense.
And you do a lot of different shows, you said. You have some upcoming shows at Ballet East.
Yeah. So we actually have right now on YouTube, you could watch it today. It is something we actually recorded during the pandemic. And it's called Lightworkers. And the idea is it's like a documentary film about Ballet East, about each of the dancers in Ballet East. And each piece talks about essentially how like we're light workers in the world with our own jobs and real lives, and then we're also like light workers in the sense of like us like sharing our light through dance and things like that. And it was really challenging because it was during the pandemic. We couldn't be in this studio, in this space rehearsing. We were at home dancing on whatever floor where there was like concrete or carpet, and we were doing our best to like train and stay in shape. And then Melissa gave us the task of like, I want you to record something. I want you to record a solo. And for me, it was so difficult because it was like that isolation really messes with your like self-confidence, messed with my mental health. And so I was like, you want me to create art right now? Like I can barely like do a plie.
Yeah.
And so she challenged us to like create solos. She challenged us to create pieces. And then when we recorded it last year, it was I want to say we recorded it in February when like the numbers were low enough and we started to think that it was over. And so we came back into the studio and we were wearing masks and everything. And so that documentary dance film, it kind of is about that whole process and what we went through during 2020.
The pandemic just has like really put a damper in how I would normally interact with my students, how I would normally interact with other artists. So it's affected my capacity of movement even. Like dancing now with such a sedentary lifestyle is like laborious every time, but I'm still here because I'll be damned if COVID takes away my capacity for movement and expressing myself. When I hear the word light, there's an energy in the studio on Saturday mornings where the light just like peers through the skylight in such a peaceful, beautiful way. And so when I hear the word light, I think of that atmosphere of like sereneness.
So kind of transitioning now from dance into the Salvage Vanguard Theater.
Yeah.
So I know you act as well. What is your role there, and
Yes.
and what have you done with the theater, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so Salvage Vanguard Theater, it's been around since 1998. They primarily do experimental theater.
Okay.
And it's usually original new work. And so they really champion like artists creating a play, and they will work with that playwright or those directors and like provide a space for them to continue to work on it throughout the years. So for like one of the first projects I worked on with Salvage Vanguard was Casta, which will be happening, the full production this October at the Blanton, but that started like 7 years ago. That's when they started doing these workshops, and like Adrienne Dawes, who's the playwright, like came to SVT every time she wanted to do a workshop and like keep working on it. And so now they're finally doing the like full like review of the world premiere or whatever, but it's taken a long time. And what I appreciate about Salvage Vanguard is they take their time rather than being like, it's good enough, and they put it out there. But my role has changed. At first, I was just like a volunteer. I helped at the front of house. And then I really liked the kind of theater they were making, so I attended and auditioned for things. And eventually I got, to act in some of their productions. And then with the pandemic, the artistic director changed, who is my friend Kate Taylor. And Kate Taylor and I like get along really well and we work well together. And she reached out to me in December of like 2019 to come on as the community like outreach coordinator. And so out of that, my role has shifted. So it's less of like, oh, you're an artist and you're participating as an artist. It's now like, okay, help us like do the stuff.
Yeah.
Which is very different and takes a different like part of your brain. But for that particular role, along with Early Era Collective, a friend of mine, Stephanie Patrick, she and I co-produced these professional development workshops for artists in Austin because we found, especially during the pandemic, everyone just like didn't know what to do. We had a lot of conversations about how like you study art maybe in college, but you don't understand how to make it profitable for yourself. You don't understand how to make it a career. And so she and I sort of brainstormed, like, let's find some artists in Austin that we admire and we feel like have maybe figured this stuff out, and then have them hold this workshop where other artists can come and ask them straight up, verbatim, like, this is what I'm struggling with, how would you approach it? And so we did 3 of those, which was really, really helpful. And it felt almost like artist group therapy because we were just like, it's hard, I don't know how to do it. And so that was really nice. And so that's my big like project that I feel like I've championed with Salvage Vanguard Theater, with my like role specifically as the community outreach.
Talking about Salvage Vanguard Theater, the other aspect to your life is your day job, which also touches on theater, but it's interesting what you're doing with that. Can you talk about that? Because I found that to be very inspiring, what you do when it comes to that in your day job.
So I work at Safe Alliance in a department called Expect Respect. I'm the educational theater coordinator, And my job is specifically around prevention of dating violence, sexual violence, and so family violence, all of the violences. I'm trying to prevent them through educational theater, which is a lot different than like my artistic side of myself. And so essentially we take a show, a play that was written and developed through some grad students at UT, but it has this relationship that models unhealthy, hurtful dating behaviors, models potentially what an abusive relationship could look like, helps define that for students, and it provides them a space to talk about it. So it's not like a typical play where you sit there and you watch the play from beginning to end and then you go home. This is more of theater for dialogue, where you watch a scene from the play, you stop the show, you talk about what you saw, you have maybe an activity to explore the themes and build an understanding of needs, boundaries. And then you go back into the play and then you watch another scene and then you do that same process again. And so instead of us being didactic and being like, this is the definition of this and this is the definition of that, instead we ask open-ended questions and then we're like, you talk about it. What do you think about it? Would you like this? So that way they are learning it through themselves rather, and that's going to be more valuable than like me being like, this is what you should do. And also the other part of it is instead of having, you know, adult actors perform this show for high school students, we have college-aged actors performing it for high school students. The CDC did a whole study that says that it's peer-to-peer mentorship is far more productive than like adults talking to kids about this stuff.
Because they're going to tune it out. They're going to think it's their parents. Yeah.
Exactly. So I direct Where's Your Line, which is the play that I was just describing. So that's college-aged students to high school-aged students. And then my supervisor, Claire Redfield, along with Noah Martin from Creative Action, they co-direct Changing Lives, which takes the high school students, they perform a show, and they tour that to middle school students.
Oh, so it's kind of a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Have you had some good experiences with some of the young people that you've talked to, and has it been eye-opening for them, some of them?
Definitely, yeah. I think there's two things that are happening. Is like you get these actors, these young adults in college, or maybe they don't go to college, but they're at that age, right? Where they think they understand, you know, an abusive relationship, or they think they have an understanding of it. And I have to go and lead them through a training so they have a full understanding of these concepts. So not only are they gonna, they're essentially getting some training to become advocates and become leaders in the community. And then they're disseminating what they've learned down to these high school students. So I feel like what I am doing, tenfolds really quickly. And so we've had, shows where students bring up some really problematic thoughts. For instance, we had a student not understand why a girlfriend might not want to answer the phone and come at your beck and call. Their understanding of relationships was, well, we're together, so if I need you for anything, you need to be there. Which doesn't sound like an unreasonable expectation, but if you watch it with the context of this girlfriend is trying to have a movie night and her boyfriend keeps spamming her phone and gaslighting her and guilt tripping her and essentially forcing her to hang out with him,
controlling,
then it's that's not a realistic expectation, and that's a codependent relationship, and you want to have your own friends, your own relationships outside of your romantic partner, right? And so that was something that came up in one of those performances, and he learned it obviously from somewhere, but it wasn't malintent. It just was
his understanding
of what a relationship was. So there's stuff that happens like that you're like, wow, because if you don't talk about relationships or what is healthy or unhealthy or loving or hurtful, how else are you going to learn? You know, if no one's teaching you, it's a learned skill. And I think relationships oftentimes aren't thought that way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So that's my day job work.
Well, and I love that everything that you do sort of has a common thread. There is like a, even with Ballet East, the helping people take classes, and even the theater, the Salvage Vanguard, like experimental. So with you, it feels very much like there's a common thread of wanting to help people and get them involved in the arts in a way that's safe for them, and they feel like they have control over their artistic expression.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I read something on your website that I have to bring up to you because it's really funny. This has to do with your show, Our Lady of the Sacred Part, Vulva Pope. And you say, her solo work, Vulva Pope, Our Lady of the Sacred Part, takes the traditions of the patriarchal Catholic Church and subverts them for her evil, intersectional, feminist agenda.
Yes.
That's my favorite part. Explain this is a one-woman show?
Yes, it
This
is.
one-woman show that, I mean, that just cracked me up when I read that. I was reading it to my videographer. She's like, you have to make sure that you say it in a certain way. So.
Oh, yeah. So my work as a solo artist is very different than like all the other things that I do. But yeah, so Vulva Pope, it started off as a joke. It was a joke that I made in rehearsal. And then my friend Indigo pushed me to submit it for a puppetry festival. And then out of that, it's just like grown into its own little monster. But yeah, imagine going to a Catholic mass, but the congregation is things like sex toys, speculum, a porcelain doll at one point. And then the leader of the church comes out in robes that look pretty similar to the vaginal opening, and then has a giant uterus pope hat.
Okay.
That's Vulva Pope. Yeah, the Eucharist is birth control, and what's the sacrament, the wine, the sacramental wine is period blood. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
So-
very in your face.
So was this like based on, did this idea kind of come from just experiences you've had in the Catholic Church? Or like being scarred maybe?
Yeah. So I actually, my mom grew up Catholic, and I didn't grow up Catholic, but watching her grow up Catholic, I have a lot to say about Catholicism. I just find, just the things that the Catholic Church has done to perpetuate this propaganda that controls people, not just women, all people. My favorite quote, I believe it's Karl Marx, that says that religion is the opiate of the masses. That's what I feel wholeheartedly with Catholicism specifically. And I also just found that a lot of the traditions really are around like this infantilization of women and keeping them small and controlling what they can and cannot do. And so I really wanted to put it on its head and like revert it and change it. So the Bible is, my Bible is books and chapters of like feminist writers. Okay. So Audre Lorde, I'm Puerto Rican, so I went to like Julia de Burgos, Luisa Capetillo, and so those are like the saints, the santas of my Bible. Sylvia Rivera also, and then I walk you through a mass. Essentially, it's an immersive experience. You go in expecting you're going to church, and then we sing some wild hymns about labia. And then intermittent between, the parts of the mass, you hear from these different objects that interact with women's bodies. And specifically cisgendered women, because that's who I am.
Yeah.
So it's a little autobiographical. So each of the objects, so there's a style of object puppetry where you take the object and you make it come to life. So that's the puppetry that I use in this show. And so for me, I took these objects that I just remember being, intertwined with my growing up with the women around me. And so the first one is this porcelain doll. That culturally in Puerto Rico, like when you're little, they try to give you a doll that looks just like you. And so I use that very same doll in the performance.
Oh, that's a little...
Oh, yeah.
Kind of creepy,
yeah,
right?
she's very creepy. But like each of these confessionals are kind of like these different challenges that I had to grapple with at different points in my life. And so like and also represent different women in my life. Like the Porcelain Doll, I feels like embodies my abuela and like those old traditions of like, you don't explore yourself, you don't touch yourself. And so the Porcelain Doll is having this confession in reference to the diosa, the woman that she's seen, right? Or that she belongs to. And in this case, it's a young girl who's masturbating. And so she's confessing to the Vulva Pope, like, ay, Dios santo, ¿qué es esto? Like, that's not good. You're not supposed to do that. And I'm right there staring at her. And so the Vulva Pope is trying to be like, it's okay, like, relax, it's fine. But the Vulva Pope has her own journey as well, where I feel like, especially with like feminism and the way it's even branded, like it's branded now, it's not just like a movement. I feel like the Vulva Pope kind of takes on that persona of like, she's like an influencer essentially of feminism.
Okay.
And so even though she's dispensing her knowledge in these confessions, she doesn't really know what she's talking about. And so at the end of the play, the real diosa ascends from within her and like says some stuff. You have to see it.
Stop. I don't know how long it will take for an entire society to change. I'm just a woman who wears a vagina and a funny hat. Pero yo soy una mujer que sufra como cualquier otra, ¿no?
But it's my little baby. I've been birthing it for like 3 years. I actually won some awards this past year. I did it during the pandemic, I actually recorded it with my friend Michaela Gibson and Ana Trevino, and then that was submitted for a theater festival that was virtual, and I won Outstanding Puppetry and Outstanding Digital Performance in like an edited piece. So that was actually...
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, I won. They call them the B.Iden Payne Awards in Austin, and so I won 2 awards for it, and I was like, dang, that's nice. If people like it, I really thought it was just a joke, and I didn't think people would like it, and
but they've connected with it.
They connected with it. I always hope whenever I make art that it doesn't tell you what to think, but it at least poses questions that you're thinking about later, and that maybe you have discussions about with someone who didn't see the show, you know? That's always what I hope for any of my art, period, is that it just poses some really good questions for you to contemplate.
Well, thank you, Marina, for talking to us about all these different projects that you're involved in.
Thank you.
As I said, all of the links to everything Marina is involved with will be in the caption. And thank you so much, and thank you for dancing in my intro. We'll be doing another one eventually.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching the Marino Show. We'll see you next time.
The Marino Show.